So I am here today with my good friend, Randy Kessler. Thanks for being with us again, this time on film.
Always good to be with you. I always learn when I talk to you, so thanks for having me.
Thanks for being with us. So, Randy is a very successful, very well-known, I always want to say divorce attorney, but family law attorney.
Divorce, family law, they're sort of interchangeable, I think, you know.
So answer me this. How did you decide that you wanted to be a family law attorney?
Who says I wanted to be one?
Okay. All right, well, tell us the story. How did you become a family law attorney?
So the long story, made really short, is that 30 years ago when I started practicing back in the late 1980s, nobody wanted to be a family lawyer. Nobody wanted to be known as a divorce lawyer. So I opened my practice. I was 29 years old, and I took everything that came in. I'd done a lot of divorce work. I did some personal injury work. I did some DUI defense. And after a year or two, I realized the people hiring me to do divorce work, that just felt better, that I was helping them get out of a bad situation. And they were generally good people. You know, and the other cases were, well, you're 30 years old, you'll take this case because you're young or you're hungry. Can you do a traffic court case? That didn't stroke my ego as much. This was real people, real families with real problems that said, you know, can you help us get out of this mess? And I felt like I did a good job at it. And I just said, you know what? I'm going to change the firm name to Family Law. We're going to put Family Law in the actual website and in the email address. And we just started, and it just kept going and going and going. And we seemed to be good at it. And that made more business come in, and more business came in. So we hired more lawyers, and lawyers seemed to be enjoying doing this kind of work, and it was rewarding. So, and I got very involved in the bar. I chaired the family law section of the American Bar, the Georgia Bar, the Atlanta Bar, and met other lawyers that really enjoyed what they do. And I just, weirdly enough, had a passion for it, that I found my passion, and I consider myself very lucky.
Well, that's interesting because I was listening to what you were saying about putting family law in the firm name and the email, which was actually an early
Yeah, it was strange back then. We couldn't call ourselves experts back then. Mm-hmm. It also meant that I was not going to get referrals for DUIs or for personal injury cases because I looked and smelled and now made myself into a family lawyer. So it was cutting off some work that I could have had and some money I could have made, but it was worth it, and it seems to have worked out.
Okay. So I know this is a big question for you, but tell me about perhaps one of your most interesting cases.
Oh my gosh. You know, the most interesting case of the day, of the
right.
week, of the moment. It just, you know, depends which angle. You know, so we represent a lot of celebrities and a lot of well-known people, and those are probably more exciting to some degree because, not because they're famous, but because they're going through the same thing that people that are not famous go through. So I sort of enjoy that maybe more than most. I enjoy seeing people that we've seen on TV or on the basketball court come in and go through this stuff and realize they're human beings and that I actually have something that I can offer them. You know, as much enjoyment as I've gotten from watching them play on the field or on the court, I'm now able to help them and give back. And I do a lot of lecturing and teaching for the National Football League Players Association and sometimes for the NBA Players Association to help their agents and financial advisors understand it. But, you know, it's hard to make light of a case. There are, you know, funny little stories. Mm-hmm. You know, like a story when I was explaining to a client, read your divorce petition before we file it. And she read it and she goes, and it said the divorce is because of the uncondoned adultery of her husband. Uh-huh. And she read it and she said, Mr. Kessler, why did you say that we're filing because of the uncondomed adultery of your husband? So, you know, the things like that you remember. Right. Or the guy coming back from court that says, you know, that could be the next ex-Mrs. Jackson except for those things behind her. And I said, what do you mean those things behind her? He said, you don't see those strings that are following her? Everyone's got strings attached. So, you know, people joke about the way they see the world, and this guy obviously thought that, you know, he was always going to be attached to his ex-wife, so he didn't want to have another ex-wife.
That's strings.
But you know, you can't. There's not a lot of humor in the real hard stuff, but we do have our moments where people say stuff that you just don't forget.
Right. So you said that you know, when you're working with celebrities, it's maybe reassuring to see that they're just like normal people who are going through divorce. In your experience, celebrity or non-celebrity, what are some of the most challenging aspects of going through the divorce process? So
there's a saying, a lawyer who represents themselves has a fool for a client. Mm-hmm. And everyone needs some objective advice, whether it's lawyer advice or friend advice or pastor advice or ministerial advice. Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of stuff that you do, you know, in your day-to-day life, because we need that outside objective, you know, feedback. We see people that just want to tell the judge their story in an angry way. Mm-hmm. And so the challenging part is to make them step outside of their case and look at it from a third party's point of view. Look at it from the judge's point of view. If you're a judge and this lady is mad as hell at her husband for what he did to her, you might want to help her, or you might just be turned off by how angry she is and turn to the husband and say, you give me a suggestion, because she's too off the deep end. I can't really listen to her. So it's hard to get people that are angry to put the anger aside for a moment and to speak rationally and to explain the solution. The judge's job is not to punish and reward. The judge's job is to find a solution to the problem. Same amount of money, now they're two households.
Mm-hmm.
Same amount of children, now they've got to spend time in two different places. How do I solve that? What is the solution that you have to offer? Because all I can do is give you a solution. I can say shame on him for doing that.
Right.
But that doesn't get you more time with your kids or more money. I've got to figure out how to divide the money that there is, or the debts that there are, and how to make sure the children know both parents. So making people be rational, step back from it, look at it somewhat more objectively is probably the hardest thing and the most important thing we do.
Okay. So in having people make these decisions, I've never done divorce, but I've heard that sometimes people can use the divorce process and their attorneys as a means to work out some of the emotional difficulties that they're having.
Well, one problem that I think that's true, and I think compound that by the fact that a lot of divorce lawyers are solo practitioners. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of really good solo practitioners, but the bottom line, when someone comes in and says to the lawyer, I'm going to pay you thousands of dollars to avenge what my spouse did to me, there's an ego thing, and you wouldn't be human if you didn't say, I'm going to stand up for him or her because they're putting their faith and their trust and their money in me. Mm-hmm. And it's hard sometimes to step back and say, that's not the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. Yes, there are people that will say, I want to go after him and her and make them suffer, and I don't care if I get anything. And there are people that I will tell, do not pay me to go to court. You will not come out any better than the offer that's on the table, except that you'll pay us a lot of money. And there are people that will tell me, I'd rather give the money to you, Mr. Kessler, than give it to him or give it to her. And we hear that all the time. And a lot of times I'll say, let's put that in writing, mm-hmm. and why don't you think about it for a week, or maybe I'm not the lawyer for you. Or sometimes, they might be right. I might be wrong that they're not going to get more than that. They might say, I think I'm going to get more than that. I'd like to tell my story. But if we have a calm, rational discussion and they've thought about it, then fine. But if it's just anger and they just want to use us to vent, I got one reputation. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to go into court and jump up and down on my high horse, unless it's really, 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 really warranted. Because if it's not warranted, I won't be able to do that again for the next client. I need to save my credibility. And you argue when it's worth arguing about it, and you settle when you've got as much as you can get without having to go to court.
So with that in mind, and I would think particularly with some high-profile cases, are there cases that you just say, how often are there cases that you just say, I cannot take this case? It
happens. It happens more than you would think. And there's my ego. Look, there's a case that might be a really hard case, and sometimes I think I can fix this. This guy or this woman thinks they should have custody, and they probably shouldn't, but I'm going to listen. Maybe they'll persuade me that it's the right thing to do, or maybe they just want a judge or a guardian, and we'll dig around a little bit, we'll see. But even if they don't have the facts to win custody or to win whatever they want to win, and we get into the case, maybe I can find a compromise. Maybe instead of him getting 75% custody, maybe we can get it to a place where he can get 50% custody, and that's okay for the children, good for the children. But there are times when you just say no, when people come in and they'll say, I know I'm not a good parent, but I want to do it just to mess with him or just to mess with her. I don't want anything to do with that. But if it's a closer call, my ego gets involved because I want to make sure I can help fix the world in a small way. If I can help do something for the kids and there's someone who's got unrealistic expectations and I can alter their expectations and make them understand that's not realistic, that won't happen in court, it's maybe not good for your family, can you look at it another way? Then maybe I've done something good and they may get mad at me because they wanted me to just do their bidding. I don't mind if the word gets out that I won't just do a client's bidding. That's not going to hurt me.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about for a second, because you talked about child custody a great deal, and I would imagine that you have to deal a lot with child support issues. Now, how does that play out? Because, we hear so much in the media about, somebody's celebrity wife is getting $100,000 a month for child support, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, she doesn't need $100,000 to pay child support.
So in the high cases, where there's a lot of, part of it depends on what they've grown up with. If someone has a child with someone who's rich, but they've never lived a high lifestyle, that's one thing. If someone's raised children, been married to or lived with someone who makes a lot of money, and the child has lived this lifestyle and this standard of living, then that child, I think, has the right to expect, even if they didn't live together, both parents have a duty to support. So if a father or mother makes $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a month, then the child should be allotted more than $1,000 a month to meet their basic needs. They should maybe have the possibility of private school if the public school in their neighborhood is not good, or if they need special training or special clothes or whatever. But there comes that balance where how much is too much. And I always, as much as I'm a divorce lawyer and I do a lot of these cases, I still feel like, who am I to judge? And every case is different, and sometimes it's about the money. One thing I know, though, is many high-profile and high-dollar child support cases I've handled, very, very rarely does the recipient get rich on the child support. I think there's this misnomer that, oh, she's a gold digger and she just wants money because she's going to live a rich lifestyle and she's getting $5,000 a month child support or $8,000 a month child support. Even at $5,000 or $6,000 or $7,000 a month child support, that's not enough to get rich on if you're really raising a child. You can put some money away, you'll have a better life than some other people, but being a single parent is very, very time-consuming and it's harder to do other things. So, yeah, if you're getting $25,000 a month and you're still living in a $2,500 a month rental place and driving an old car and pocketing the money for yourself, that's not right. But if the money's being used for the child, even the people paying it are really often not that upset, as long as they know the money's really benefiting the child. It's when someone's paying a lot of money and they see the recipient spending on themselves and not on the child, and that's when it's wrong, and that's when it's a harder case, and that's when we have to expose it and say, Judge, he or she should not be receiving $20,000 a month because the child doesn't need that. The other side is already paying the medical insurance, the college, the everything else. That's too much. That's just, an ounce of flesh. They're trying to be vengeful. Right. So it does happen. But those cases are more reserved for California and New York. Georgia does not have the highest child support guidelines in the country, although, we've seen some high awards, but nothing like the stuff all us divorce lawyers talk about. Did you see that case in California? Did you see that case in Beverly Hills? Did you see that, the $50,000 a month alimony that is not a big deal out there? That's a big deal here. Yeah. There are cases that have that, but those cases you don't hear about. Those cases are settled, they're private, nobody wants to go to court, and people have the money to pay that kind of money, and they don't mind because the other side's still going to be well off. If you make $500,000 a month, $50,000 a month is not that big deal. It's just moving the decimal points from if you made $5,000 a month and you're paying $50 a month.
Right.
$500,000, $50,000.
Right. Well, let me ask you this, because you're talking about the importance of taking care of the children. So I've seen cases where, even in my personal life, where someone may split, or maybe they've never been married, and this is probably more likely what happens when they've never been married, and one of the parents is, usually the dad, is much better off than the mother, and they're paying child support, or the child comes and live with them. And I've always thought about, I don't know if you call it a moral position, but ensuring that the home the child is in with their other parent is a nice, safe home, even if that means that you are subsidizing other children.
So there's a saying, money solves a lot of problems. It doesn't solve all the problems, but there are a lot of people, and people with money will say, if you have a problem that can be solved with money, you don't have a problem. Well, especially if you have money.
Right, right.
But we've certainly been involved in cases like that where we represent the moneyed spouse who has, or the moneyed parent who has millions and millions and millions, and the other side foregoes custody or yields custody because they know they're just not capable and they have some personal issues or whatever kind of things they have in their background. They know the child would be better off. It's hard for them to do that, and it's hard for them to give up the one thing that makes them even with the other side. But I've had those hard conversations with athletes, with people that make a lot of money, and I say, you have all this money. What if I could tell you the one thing you could do with that money is make sure that your child is raised in a good environment, not only with you, but when they're with the other parent, that the other parent is always healthy and always has a safe car. What better use of your money? And as soon as they start to think about it, they get it. As soon as they stop seeing it as, well, he or she, and like you said, usually she is just trying to get money from me and she doesn't even have full custody, I've got custody. As soon as they start seeing that, this does help my child, as much as I don't like writing a check to her, if my child's going to benefit, and then what they really see, and this is where I see the light bulb go off in a good way. They say, long term from now, when my child is 20 years old, 30 years old, they're going to say, it must be stereotypical, Dad, you raised me, you took care of me, you paid all my bills, you bought me clothes, and you still gave Mom $5,000 a month so that when I was with her, she didn't have to suffer and she didn't have to feel like she couldn't buy me nice things like you could, and she didn't have to feel unequal. You did that for me?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it brings tears to your eyes when you think about it like that. And when you explain it like that to somebody, they say, you know what, you're right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, what do you think is the hardest part of your job?
The hardest part is seeing the hurt. The person that does not want the divorce or the separation, that's the hardest part because I can't fix that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I wish, and the saddest part for me in divorce or family law, the light bulb never goes off at the same time. If both people woke up and said, today, we both decided we feel the exact same way, neither one of us wants to be married, but we want to be friends, it'd be a lot easier on me. But usually somebody wants out, they've come to that conclusion that they'd be better off single or moving forward, and the other person isn't there. And that other person, wants that person back, and they're not willing to negotiate hard. They don't fight for themselves because if they fight for money, it's going to push the other person further away, and they're hoping to get them back. Or they throw money at them. They say, here, I'll give you more money if you'll stay. And they're not thinking about protecting themselves that, I've got $1 million, you can have it all, because I want you to know I'm a nice person. Well, you take it all and you get divorced, and now I've got nothing. And I've got to protect them from that while not interfering with the possibility that they might make the marriage work. Maybe they're right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a hard balance. I wrestle with that at times.
Really? It's interesting to say that because I have a friend and she was going through a divorce, and it was a situation where the husband had access to the money. They had built a company together, but the husband had access to the money. And he wanted to work it out, but he was being a jerk about the money. And that just made her want to work it out even less.
Hate him even more, right?
And she said to him, the way that you're behaving about the money, just...
People act out of anger. They act out of emotion. They don't think long term, because when someone's leaving you, it's rejection. You're leaving me? You don't want to be with me? I'll show you. How dare you leave me? You're going to be poor. You're going to suffer. that. And hindsight's always 20/20. A year later, you wish you hadn't acted that way. But when we're hurt, we lash out. We say things. I mean, you see it all over the world. You see it all the way up the political spectrum. You see it in tweets. You offend somebody, you hurt somebody's feelings, you disagree with them, and they lash out. There absolutely should be a way that when you send an email, it doesn't send for 30 minutes. You can go back and say, I've rethought that email, let me edit it a little bit. Same thing vocally. If I could just say, you know how I feel? And then pause, and then 30 minutes later, it probably would come out differently than the heat of the moment.
Right. It's interesting that you say that too, because a lot of that, we say it to the person who's saying it, but, and I don't want to be gender, stereotype, but a lot of times, I see men say, hey, just leave me alone, give me a moment, and, the woman or the other person keeps pushing. Yeah. And so I think it's advice that both sides need to take.
Absolutely.
Let the person have some space. If you keep pushing it, it's
going to get
it worse.
If you want a reaction, you're not going to get the reaction you want if you push for it.
Right.
You might if you let them think about it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
If people were smart about this stuff and people were rational about it, I'd be out of business. and the world might be a better place if people would just think through these things and work. But that's why there are family wars, because people don't think about it rationally. They come into it emotionally and angry and vengeful, and a good lawyer will say, let's put the vengeance aside because it's not going to advance your position or your cause or your case. And a bad lawyer, and there are a lot of bad lawyers, there are a lot of good lawyers. I think there are a lot more good lawyers than bad lawyers, but there's some bad lawyers that will say, yeah, let's fight a little bit harder because I'm charging by the hour.
Right.
But I think lawyers have reputations for a reason, and if you look around, the good ones are the ones that you want to be like if you're a lawyer, and you realize they will tell people to do the right thing. When you see them behind closed doors, or you have a case with them, and they say, don't worry, we don't even need to file this case. He's going to keep paying the bills, and we'll work it out. Great. I could make a lot more money by going to court and saying, Judge, make him pay.
Mm-hmm.
But if he's doing it anyway, I've done a good job, and hopefully she or he's going to call their friends and say, look, I have the best lawyer in the world. If you ever need one, go to him or her.
Right. So let me ask you this. Let's just say, celebrity, regular person, what advice would you give someone who is about to get married?
About to get married.
Mm-hmm.
To prenup or not to prenup?
Mm-hmm.
I think prenups are an interesting conversation. If you've been married before and went through an ugly, expensive, nasty divorce, you have a much more authoritative position on saying, I want a prenup this time. I thought the last marriage was going to last, and it didn't. I was wrong. I think this one's going to last, but if I'm wrong. If you're older and you've created a lot of wealth and you are worried that that's going to all be in the pot if you get divorced, but I think it comes down to a personal decision. You know, it may be that you're the dependent spouse. You're the one that doesn't make as much. You might be the one who wants the prenup to reassure the other side. But I think the best advice to someone getting married is don't rush into it. I mean, life is long. You can take your time, and or we all make mistakes. Just recognize if it doesn't work out, I was a romantic. I jumped into it. I can live with it. It's hard to remember, but 3 years from now, if my marriage doesn't work out, it was worth it because I loved her so much that I wanted to try it, and I felt it. So shame on me for not waiting. But you know, some things are worth the suffering at the end. Right? Better to have loved and lost than never to have loved, they say.
Absolutely. And so what advice would you give to someone who's about to get divorced or considering divorce?
If you're thinking about getting divorced, obviously I'd rather you make sure that you want a divorce, and we will never file unless someone says that they're ready. I can say it's beneficial to you to file before this month and that month, but I will not file unless you know psychologically you're ready for a divorce. If you're thinking about getting divorced, sooner rather than later, talk to a lawyer. Absolutely, go talk to someone who's done it, and a good lawyer, someone who's done nothing but family law or a lot of family law. And if you don't walk away from that meeting feeling very comfortable with the person you met, there's nothing wrong with going to 2 or 3 or 4 lawyers and seeing how you feel. You might hear a lot of the same information. Sometimes it's not what you hear, but how you hear it. Does he listen to you? Does she tell you what she thinks you need to do when you haven't even thought about that? You haven't thought about where you're going to live. You know, and your lawyer that you meet with says, you ought to start pricing houses in the neighborhood. You might want to check the school district you want your kids to be in, you know? That might be the right person. But the main thing is find someone smart who handles family law, who you jive with, that you get along with, that you can comport with. Best advice I could give.
So, and what do you think about how important is it, because I don't want to make it all about money, but I remember there was a woman that I'd gone to high school with, and I ran into her, and she said that she was getting a divorce. And she said, but I don't want anything. I just want to walk away from it. And I thought, well, that's dumb.
Tough. Yeah, I mean, but you know what they say, divorce is not about money. You know, divorce is about happiness, or as one of my clients once told me, it's sometimes just about being less miserable. But it's, and there's that old joke, you know, why is divorce so expensive? Because it's worth it. You know, nobody gets divorced and is worth more money divorced than they were together. Elin Woods, Tiger Woods' wife. Everyone says she got rich, she got divorced, they had $1 billion, so she must have $500 million. Yeah, she got $500 million instead of $1 billion. The Bezos, they each have less. So you have less when you're divorced. Obviously, you don't get divorced for financial reasons. So if you want to walk away with nothing, it might be worth it to you to walk away with nothing. I know people have former clients, friends who say, I'm living in a friend's basement instead of my $1 million house. I'm 10 times happier. So sometimes it is worth it. But let a lawyer fight for something to give you a future. If you accumulated, let's say $1 million, it's a round number, why walk away with nothing? Why not say he or she can have 75% of it? When you know the judge is probably going to only give him or her 50%. Find out what a lawyer says, find out what your spouse is going to hear from a lawyer, and then say, I'll double what everyone's telling you should get. But yeah, you should fight a little bit for yourself so that 5 years from now when you need a new car and you got no money, you say, I wish I had a way to get around because now I'm out of a car because I gave her everything. Yeah, it's hard to take that breath, but it's hard to second guess. It's hard for me to judge, and people make that decision. That's what they want to do. As long as I've given them the options, as long as I've told them that you would get more if you went to court, but you're choosing to take less, my conscience is clear.
Another question, what should somebody, because I know you said that if someone is about to get a divorce, the first thing they should do is go talk to a lawyer sooner rather than later. And I know you mentioned a few things about hearing different things and maybe the way that you hear. What are some of the things that you would tell people to look for when they are considering choosing a divorce attorney?
So when you're looking for a divorce lawyer, I think there are a couple things. Number one, you want somebody who has handled a significant amount. Someone who's not a personal injury lawyer that has done 1 or 2 divorces. Now in small cities, there's not enough divorce business for someone to be a full-time divorce lawyer, but there's some smart lawyers that do divorce and other stuff. In big cities too. By and large, the firms that do only family law are going to be better at it because they see it morning and night. I think you want someone smart. You want someone that you can rapport with, that you can talk to. And if you're still not sure, ask your friends or ask lawyers that you know. Because a lot of lawyers can't stand handling divorce work for obvious reasons. It's ugly, it's personal, they don't want to be involved. They'd rather just do the clean corporate work where there's no emotion involved, it's just money or whatever it is. But lawyers know who's a good lawyer because we're in the same community, and I know who is a good trust and estate lawyer, and I know who's a good criminal lawyer. And I don't do that, but I know who I would go to if I needed one, and I know who I would refer you or anybody else to if you needed a corporate or estate lawyer or whatever. So I'd ask lawyers, but really, go with your gut. Go have a few meetings, even if it costs you $500 to sit down for an hour with a lawyer. Talk to that lawyer. Ask questions. Ask how much it's going to cost. Ask who else is going to work on the case. Is there a staff person, a younger lawyer that's going to help? Meet them. See if you like the team. Some people walk out of our office, I hope everyone walks out of our office, but I bet most people walk out saying, I like them, I know they know what they're doing, and I know that they listen to me. And if you don't feel like that walking out of our office, then you shouldn't hire us. But if you feel like that, then you're ahead of the game. There are some lawyers that will just tell the same thing to every client. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to go to court. We're going to get you as much as we can. We're going to fill out the paperwork, and then I'll call you when your result. It's a teamwork. Our methodology is we like to educate our clients.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that works for everybody, but I want my clients to understand why. Why are we going to agree to skip a court date? I want to see her in court. I want her to suffer. Let me explain to you. We go to court. The judge is going to see the venom in your eyes and not like you, or the judge might make you pay more money than you're already paying voluntarily. And then all of a sudden she will feel empowered that she likes the judge and she won't want to settle. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. So instead of just saying we're not going to court or we're continuing it, I like to explain why. Sometimes I explain why and the client says, thanks for explaining why, I still want to go. Okay. It's an informed decision.
Right. Well, let me ask you this. So I will just go back a little bit. When I remember I first met you, I was working for the Daily Report.
Oh, wow,
and,
you've come a long way.
I know.
You're doing some great stuff.
I know. My boss was like, oh, you gotta go meet Randy. He's a great guy. He's one of our authors. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll go meet Randy. And I was like, wait a minute, I know this guy. And I couldn't remember it right away. And I was like, oh, I've seen him on Real Housewives.
Oh, no.
Because I watch it all the time.
Oh, no.
So how did you end up on Real Housewives? How did you end up working with all of these celebrity clients?
So I've represented a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out I'd represented a friend of one of the Real Housewives in Atlanta. And that friend referred the Real Housewife to me. Mm-hmm. And we were working together, and then the Real Housewife asked if I wouldn't mind being part of the show, or at least on the show. I wasn't getting paid, I wasn't going to get paid, and I didn't want to get paid. And I had some long talks with my wife and my family, and I agreed to do it. They filmed the person walk into my office, and I closed the door, and that was it. Mm-hmm. That's all I did, is I let them watch her walk down the hall with me. And they said that wasn't good enough. They needed to see her actually asking a divorce lawyer for divorce advice, just saying I want a divorce, to make it real. I said, if that's it, and we had some heart-to-heart talks. They weren't going to make me into a dramatic personality, that I was just there so that it looked like she really was going through divorce, which she was. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, and it was a risk, and I enjoyed doing it. And it's also my curiosity factor, just like I like seeing athletes and seeing what it's like to go from being an impoverished 17-year-old to a multimillionaire, having to figure out life and how to invest. Watching these people that were, by and large, average people. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're superstars, but they didn't have anything given to them on a silver platter, and they worked their way up, and their personality and their drive got them to where they are. Seeing how they did it and how it evolved, I got to sort of peek behind the curtain to some degree, and I got to see what it was like, and that was fascinating to me. And just another benefit of being a family lawyer is that I get to see what it's like to be, whether it's a young African-American woman struggling with, all the pressures that are going on in her community, and then how to deal with success when her friends are not as successful, or dealing with an athlete. That's the beauty of my job. I see all shapes, sizes, walks, colors, genders, sexual preferences, and and we're all human, and and it all brings us to the same place. If you end up getting a divorce, you go through the same emotions as many other people I've seen. It's sort of interesting for me to see that, and to learn and to live vicariously to some degree through the eyes of others.
So I, always just think of you now as Randy, my friend, but...
You are my friend. That's how I think of you.
Someone saw a picture of us the last time. They're like, oh my goodness, you know Randy. He's, I guess, now considered like the celebrity divorce attorney. Is that how you consider yourself?
No. Mm-hmm. I've got a family member, a daughter, who once said, Dad, I want to be like you when I grow up. And she was very young when she said this. I said, what do you mean? She goes, I want to be a little bit famous, you know. Sometimes we're out and somebody recognizes me, but it's not all the time. It's not an impediment to my life. The famous people that I'm around, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, you know, I see them, they can't go 2 feet without someone stopping them for a photograph or an autograph, a word, you know, a picture, a video. I wouldn't want to be in that position. But it is sort of cool every now and then when I'm checking out a Kroger and someone says, I know you. How do I know you? I know, and their eyes light up, and they're happy. I'm like, that's cool. They're happy because they saw somebody who was on TV. It's still a thing. I don't think 20 years from now, being on TV is going to be a thing. Being on Instagram might be a thing, being on social media, but it's still a thing where if you see somebody on TV, there's that impression that, oh, that's pretty cool. Somebody that was mystically transported via television into my living room is actually right here in person with me. So that, it's cool to get to experience that every now and then.
No, and you know what? It's funny when people look at you and say, I know you from somewhere. Because whenever I see people that I've seen on television, my first thing is I know them from somewhere.
Right.
And so I remember one time I saw Sam Donaldson, and I was looking at him, and I'm like, he must be friends with my grandfather. Because you feel a familiarity of the person, because they've been in your house.
And you know what else? So I've been around these famous people. We've been in court, and everyone comes up to them and calls them by their first name.
Right, as if they know them familiarly.
Right. If I saw you, and I didn't know you, and we were in the clerk's office in Fulton County, I'd say, you know, Miss Peyton Jones. I wouldn't say, hey, Kim. Yeah. But people that see you on TV, they think they know you. You know, you see whoever it is, David Muir, or on ABC News, you'd see him, you'd say David. Or if you see Dominic Wilkins, you know, hey, Dominique. I see people call him that all the time.
Wow.
We go to Hawks games and people come up to him that don't know him. They don't say Mr. Wilkins, which is probably the right way to do it, but because you feel like you know him.
Right. I know. I actually call people by the whole name if I see them. I'm like, oh, hey, Brady Kessler.
That's cool. Actually.
You know,
I like that.
Because I just think of them as their name. But you know, of course, I call people Mr. and Mrs. But it's funny because when I see a famous person, I just think of them as.
That's who you know them as.
Yeah,
right?
The whole name. But so now you got the celebrity status, a little bit famous, as your daughter says, and so you're working on this new business, Starsona. Tell us a little bit about Starsona.
Look at this. I just happen to have a prop.
What? You just happen to have that in your pocket.
So I'll tell you about this prop in a second. It's got a good story behind it. So I do see a lot of famous people, and I meet with them, and I see them being nice to fans and friendly to fans, and I just thought there should be a way for the average person to experience that. You know, I get calls. People will call me and say, "Can you have one of your basketball player clients wish my kid a happy birthday on a video?" And I just thought there should be an app for that. Sidestep that, I have a family member, a sister-in-law, who was very involved in Silicon Valley and LegalZoom, and we were working on some divorce apps and stuff like that. And her whole team was from Silicon Valley, and they were Google data miners and information technology specialists and people, careers I didn't know existed. And one day I told them, I said, can I tell you guys, I was on a FaceTime call with all of them. I said, can I tell you about my idea? They said, sure, what is it? I said, I call it the Happy Birthday app. You know, there should be an app to let the average person, someone who's in Oklahoma and who's never going to see the Atlanta Hawks play, but they want to reach out and get a video wish from an Atlanta Hawk player or a reality star from TV. How do they find somebody without looking up who the lawyer or the agent is, calling the agent, and trying to track them down? How do we short circuit that? Maybe they can just pay $100 the star gives to charity, and the star does a video for them. They loved it. We took off. They hired a CEO that I fell in love with, this guy who'd been CEO of a couple companies, and he did a big shot at PayPal and Intuit. And we launched it and did a trial launch. Star started signing it. The stars love it more than the fans. Mm-hmm. It's a way to touch their fans and make somebody happy. Because they know there are people that love them. They might forget about it, and then they go to the grocery store and they see it. But you know, when they get a little ding on their phone, we all love getting a text, right? We get a text, oh, I'm important. They get a request, hey, I want to pay you $25 to wish my kid congratulations on graduating at the top of his class from 7th grade. You want me to make you give it? Sure. And they light up and they do the video, and the kid's happy and the parent's happy and the parent feels like a hero, because what better gift could you give your kid? You know, maybe you get an autograph that you're not sure is authentic. Right. But you get a famous singer or musician or basketball player to say your kid's name and to put on a video. Your kid becomes the rock star of the high school, and all of a sudden they put it on their social media, and now you're a rock star parent for having done that for your kid or your nephew or your cousin. It's just a win-win-win-win-win. There's no downside to it. From business model, it's great. I don't have to build chairs and sell them or widgets. And the story behind this is I was going to go to the NBA All-Star game, and the NBA Players Association said, we want to give some brochures out to our players. Do you have any? And I said, sure. I said, honey, my wife, who's a graphic designer, we need some brochures. So, that was the original for this original brochure. We have, shirts and swag.
Well, she did a good job.
I think she did a really good job. It's easy to read, but the bottom line is try it out. And if anyone is watching this or listening and has an idea or a problem with it, tell me, write me. Say randy@starsona.com or my email's online, or Kessler, KS Family Law, and say I tried Starsona and I love it, but here's another good idea. Because we're learning, and this is cool. This is outside my comfort zone. I'm a divorce lawyer.
Right.
This is Silicon Valley stuff. But it's a nice way to use a divorce term, it's a nice way to marry my two interests. My interest in relating to and helping celebrities and, helping the average person. This is the average person connecting with a star in a way that I've sort of been able to do through work. It just feels good, and it works, and it looks cool, and it's easy to use, and I can't believe an old guy like me had an idea that actually works. We all have ideas. Everybody's an inventor, but we actually had an idea that now is out there and flawless and seems to work well. I don't need to do anything else as a side project. Just I'll keep practicing law, I'll keep doing what I do, and hopefully people are enjoying Starsona and saying, the guy did something else cool. It's not so cool being a divorce lawyer, but it's cool, inventing Starsona.
Well, I was going to ask you, are you going to stop practicing law and just
No way.
do all Starsona?
I love practicing law too much. I love helping people. I enjoy it. Starsona is a side thing. The team out there loves it. The CEO, it's full time. We've got 12 full employees. People working their butts off full time. My job is just to say that I came up with the idea. I like it. I will, connect you, or I'll connect stars if they want to be on it. If they like it, I'll make it easy for them. But I'm a divorce lawyer first, and Starsona is sort of a side love and it's my side chick. my thing on the side.
Gotcha. Well, thanks so much, Randy, for being with us again today, as always. And I know you said your email address, but is there any other way that people can get in touch with you? Are you on social media?
So I'm on social media. I mean, the book, Divorce, Protect Yourself, Your Kids, and Your Future, is divorceprotect.com, has my contact info. You can follow me. I've I think 400,000 followers on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So I love, connecting with people on LinkedIn. That's probably my favorite. @GA Divorce is my Twitter, but LinkedIn is probably my biggest.
I mean, how are we going to connect with you? You have 400,000 followers.
Easy, because that's it's nice. They're all people that are interested in family law and divorce law, but we're connecting. I don't have 400,000 connections.
Okay, gotcha.
I don't have that many connections because this following thing was new to me when LinkedIn reached out to me and said, we're going to create this thing called influencers and you're going to have followers, and I didn't know what it was. They just said, just trust us. Write about family law. Write about what you feel is important in the field of family law. And anyone that's related to family law or divorce or legal, we'll put your information on their feed and they'll see you. And if they like you, they'll follow you. And it's worked out. So.
Wow. So you got LinkedIn fame. You got Starsona fame.
You helped me the day before we did that forms book for Georgia divorce. That was great.
Yeah.
And I love presenting on family law. I love, case by case, we're making one person's life hopefully a little better. But stuff like this, helping you, the SouthernLawyer, and people that read or hear or see what I'm speaking about, maybe it helps them in some small way. I hope I help people that I have no idea that I've helped. Even if it's just somebody heard me say, yeah, meet with a couple lawyers. It's okay to not choose the first lawyer you meet with. If that helps somebody, great.
Great. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much for all you do. You do a lot for me and for the community. And Atlanta, Georgia is very lucky to have you.
Thank you.